In this video, we will talk about famous cases of survival cannibalism in history, so make sure to watch the full video. Survival cannibalism is a haunting reality when humans face extreme starvation and death. Throughout history, desperate individuals have resorted to consuming human flesh to stay alive. From shipwrecks to Arctic expeditions and war-torn cities. These real-life cases reveal the terrifying lengths people will go to in order to survive against impossible odds. 1. The Donner Party tragedy. The Donner Party's journey began in 1846 when a group of pioneers set out for California, seeking a better life. However, their decision to take an untested shortcut, known as the Hastings Cutoff, led to disastrous consequences. The route turned out to be much longer and more treacherous than expected, slowing them down significantly. By the time they reached the Sierra Nevada mountains in late October, an early and unexpected snowfall trapped them in deep snowdrifts. With no way to escape, the group built makeshift shelters near Truckee Lake, now Donner Lake, and attempted to survive the harsh winter. As their food supplies dwindled, they were forced to eat their oxen, dogs, and even tree bark. But as the weeks turned into months and starvation set in, some members turned to cannibalism, consuming the bodies of those who had perished. Several rescue parties eventually made it to the stranded pioneers, but by then, many had already died. 2. The Andes Flight Disaster. 1972. On October 13, 1972, Uruguayan Air Force Flight 571, carrying 45 passengers, including a rugby team and their friends and family, crashed into the remote Andes Mountains. The plane was en route from Uruguay to Chile, but due to pilot miscalculations and poor weather, it struck a mountain peak and broke apart. 12 people died immediately in the crash, and several others succumbed to their injuries in the following days. Those who survived faced brutal conditions, sub-zero temperatures, high altitude, and no access to food. For days, they searched the wreckage for anything edible, consuming whatever they could find, small amounts of wine, chocolate, and other snacks. As hunger and desperation grew, they made the unthinkable decision to eat the bodies of their dead friends to stay alive. With no plants or animals in the frozen landscape, their only option was human flesh. 3. The Greely Expedition. 1881 to 1884. The Greely Expedition was a U.S. Army-led Arctic mission under the command of Lieutenant Adolphus Greely. The goal was to gather scientific data and explore uncharted northern territories. In 1881, Greely and his crew of 25 men traveled to Ellesmere Island, a remote and frozen region near the North Pole. For 2 years, they endured extreme cold, dwindling rations, and isolation, when resupply ships failed to reach them due to ice blockages. The crew was forced to abandon their base in 1883 and move south in search of help. The harsh Arctic environment offered little hope, and as starvation set in, the men resorted to eating their leather boots, moss, and any available wildlife. Eventually, they turned to cannibalism, consuming the remains of their deceased comrades. By the time a rescue team finally arrived in 1884, only 6 of the original 26 men were still alive. The survivors were severely malnourished and traumatized. The story of the Greely expedition remains one of the most extreme examples of survival in the Arctic and serves as a haunting reminder of the brutal conditions early explorers faced. 4. The Franklin Expedition. 1845. Sir John Franklin's 1845 expedition aimed to chart the final sections of the Northwest Passage, a crucial sea route through the Arctic. The expedition consisted of 2 ships, HMS Erebus and HMS Terror, with a crew of 129 men. However, disaster struck when the ships became trapped in ice near King William Island. As months turned into years, the crew suffered from malnutrition, scurvy, and harsh conditions. Despite multiple attempts to escape the ice, the situation worsened, and starvation took its toll. Archaeological and historical evidence suggests that some of the crew turned to cannibalism in their final desperate days. Cut marks on discovered human bones indicate that bodies were butchered for consumption. The entire crew perished, and the expedition became one of history's greatest Arctic disasters. The fate of the Franklin expedition remained a mystery for over a century until the wrecks of Erebus and Terror were discovered in 2014 and 2016. 5. The Essex whale ship disaster. 1820. The Essex was a whaling ship from Nantucket that set sail in 1819 with a crew of 21 men. While hunting in the Pacific Ocean, the ship was rammed and sunk by an enraged sperm whale in November 1820. The surviving crew members scrambled into 3 small lifeboats with limited provisions, drifting thousands of miles across the open ocean. As their food ran out and men started dying from thirst and exposure, the survivors resorted to cannibalism. They first consumed the bodies of those who perished naturally. Eventually, they made the grim decision to draw lots to determine who would be sacrificed for the survival of the others. After 95 days at sea, a passing ship rescued the few remaining men. The Essex disaster later inspired Herman Melville's classic novel Moby Dick. 6. The Leningrad Siege, 1941 to 1944. During World War II, the Soviet city of Leningrad, now St. Petersburg, was surrounded by Nazi forces in a brutal siege that lasted 872 days. With supply lines cut off, the city's residents faced starvation on an unimaginable scale. Thousands died daily from cold, disease, and hunger. People ate anything they could find: leather belts, wallpaper paste, and even sawdust bread. As the famine worsened, cases of cannibalism became widespread. Some desperate individuals dug up bodies from cemeteries, while others targeted the weak. Soviet authorities arrested and executed those caught committing cannibalism, but survival instincts often outweighed fear of punishment. By the time the siege ended in 1944, nearly 1 million people had perished. The Siege of Leningrad remains one of the most devastating events of World War II. 7. The Alexander Pierce Case, 1822 to 1824. Alexander Pierce was an Irish convict sent to a penal colony in Tasmania for theft. In 1822, he and a group of prisoners escaped into the wilderness with no food and rough terrain. The men soon turned on each other. Pierce later admitted to killing and eating his fellow escapees one by one. Captured and imprisoned, Pierce escaped again in 1824 and repeated his gruesome acts. When caught a second time, he confessed to cannibalism, saying he preferred human flesh over any other food. He was executed by hanging later that year. His case remains one of history's most infamous examples of convict cannibalism. 8. The Mignonette Shipwreck, 1884. The Mignonette was a small yacht that sank in the South Atlantic in 1884. The 4 surviving crew members were stranded in a lifeboat with no food or water. After weeks at sea, they made the grim decision to kill and eat their weakest member, a cabin boy named Richard Parker. When they were rescued, the 3 surviving men were put on trial for murder. Their case became a landmark in legal history, establishing the precedent that necessity is not a defense for murder. 2 of the men were convicted but received lenient sentences. 9. The Batavia Mutiny, 1629. When the Dutch ship Batavia wrecked off the coast of Australia in 1629, survivors faced horrific conditions. A mutiny broke out, leading to mass killings and cannibalism among the stranded. The mutineers, led by Jeronimus Cornelis, terrorized the survivors, killing and consuming them. Order was restored when a rescue ship arrived, and the mutineers were executed. 10. The Uruguayan Stranded Soldiers, 1879 and 1879. Uruguayan soldiers stranded in Patagonia resorted to cannibalism. After running out of food, facing extreme starvation, they ate their deceased comrades to survive. The event, though lesser known, remains a harrowing example of survival cannibalism in South America. What do you think of our video? Let me know in the comments section below. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit that like button. Also, subscribe to our channel before you go. Thank you for watching.